see that. Okay. Thank you everyone for responding to the poll. I appreciate it. So I want to welcome everybody tonight. My name is Rafi from Olim Advisors, and it's amazing. We had over 215 people register, which is just so inspiring to see that people are still moving forward with the Aliyah plans and planning, planning all the process. And so it's great to be here. I just want to welcome the moderators who have joined me tonight. Kim Bash from Kim Bash Realty, Ariel Rahmanov from Aliyah Homes, and Michael Horwitz from Aliyah Homes. So thank you all for joining us. And I know we're all looking forward to helping people go through this process. Before we get into the content, I just want to mention a couple of things. If you have any questions, feel free to post your questions in the chat window, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end. And so we'll try to get to as many questions as possible. If we're not able to get to your question, or if you need some additional help, or want to talk about anything, just reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you. Just reach out to us. We'll schedule a call. And for those who do schedule a call with us, we'll also send you an additional email with additional tips and advice that we think would be very helpful. So without further ado, Ariel, Michael, I'll hand it over to you guys.
Right. Thank you very much, Rafi, for the introduction. It is very nice. And so I'm the co-founder of Aliyah Homes. Michael Horwitz is also the co-founder. And we got together, and we asked one question: how can we make the Aliyah process stress-free? And that's our mission. We want to make sure that every individual, every person making Aliyah has a stress-free experience. That is our mission. And we do that by creating a network. We have a network in place. We have relationships built. We have relationships built, such as with Rafi Shulman, Olim Advisors, and Kim Bash. And it's almost like we're a concierge program from the American side. And what we do, and in order to help you guys out, is we do that by selling your houses. And that's how we function. That's how we survive. It's no different than any other agent, but we come with the extra package, with the Aliyah expertise and the Aliyah niche. That's what we do, and that's who we are. And I'm going to pass it along to Michael. He's going to teach you guys some tips on how to strategically put yourself in a situation in selling your home and netting the most possible money you can, and putting yourself up very nicely for when you purchase a home or rent a place in Israel.
So thanks for that, Ari, and I'm glad to be here with everybody today. And when we were preparing for this, one of the conversations that came up is, first of all, the time to make Aliyah, and then when do I sell my home? And right now in most of the United States, we're in a seller's market, and there's very high demand, very little inventory, which I also understand from Kim that it's very similar on the other side. So when you're preparing today to sell your home, we know that that's going to happen fairly quickly. And the market times are short. In some places, market times are under a day in terms of getting a home sold and under contract and being ready to go in 30 days. Yet the process of Aliyah does not happen in a day. So we're in a market today, and my crystal ball certainly is broken. I don't know what it's going to look like. Although all of the expectations are that things aren't going to change dramatically as to interest rates and demand. We're more than 3 million new homes short across the United States from the late 2000s to where we are today. And so the key is really to be able to understand that in every market, there are always buyers for homes. So as you're preparing, certainly if you're ready to sell today, that's something that we can help you with no matter where you are through our extensive network across the country of agents. And we know it's going to be a short market time. And then the process of making Aliyah is something that we want to make sure that we help you with. So people have said to me often, well, given that the market is the way it is today, maybe I should just sell my home myself. And there's research that's been done by the National Association of Realtors and independent researchers that says that sellers who list their home with real estate agents get 10% more money, which more than covers the cost of a real estate agent, actually puts more money in your pocket. And that happens for a number of reasons. First of all, if you're selling your home by yourself, if you live in a place where you can put a sign outside, homes, less than 2% of homes sell as a result of a sign that's in the yard. Maybe you can get it onto a website that'll get some exposure. It doesn't get the same level of exposure. And it's certainly the negotiating process. Real estate agents are experts in that. And we're trained to help get you the most exposure. And we're trained to help you negotiate the best possible, not just price, but all the rates, the terms and conditions that go along with that to ensure the contracts are executed properly, that the money is properly escrowed, that the financing is being followed up on, all of the inspections, all of the pieces that have to come together in order for a successful transaction to happen with all the pieces of the puzzle. So that's our expertise, and that's what we do all day, every day. So we know that if you're prepared to sell your home, that finding the right real estate agent is really the first place to start. Second thing is to price your home to sell. Testing the market is not a great idea, especially where we are today, because when a home is on the market too long, the first thing buyers think is, what's wrong with the home? Why didn't it sell? What's going on with that? Are they even serious? So pricing your house to sell is going to get you the maximum amount of exposure. And by getting the maximum exposure, we'll get the maximum number of showings, we'll get the maximum number of offers, we'll help you to negotiate the best possible price, and also the terms and conditions that meet your needs. And we speak about terms, we talk about things like time to close. And I have had clients who have had to sell a home, buy a home, relocate, making moves all over the world. And we've had to align the timing. So that's something that we're also experts at, is how do we negotiate the whole package? The other piece that is so important is that when you're making Aliyah, especially, or you're buying property in Israel, you want to be able to coordinate with what's going on here in the US, with what's going on in Israel, so that you have a smooth transition. How are you going to transport all of your belongings if you're taking them? Is there somebody who is an expert in logistics and transportation? Will you connect with the right people to help you with your financial resources that you need, with banking and those things, setting you up with doctors and lawyers, and all the pieces that happen from here to the US, because we don't think about all the things we do every day. Yet we need to know what's going on when we're making that transition. So connecting with the right agent will help you to make that transition as smooth as possible. And that's really what Aliyah Homes is about, is helping to be that concierge service to meet your needs, to help you as an individual identify what's important to you, and then help provide that solution. So we're your single source. With offices around the world, we can help connect you with all of your needs. And we look forward to answering your questions and helping to make this process work for you. So, and from that, I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Ariel. We appreciate it. So I'll talk about the Aliyah process. And for many people, it can be overwhelming. There's so many decisions that one has to make, from finding a community, to finding a home, to finding schools for your kids. And a lot of that you have to make before you get to Israel. So if you're in the US, the UK, South Africa, or anywhere else in the world, making these very important decisions is extremely challenging when you're not familiar with the culture and the language. And so that's kind of the first part of the process. And then the second part is, when you get to Israel, then you have to adjust. Then you have to deal with the bureaucracy. You have to open up your bank account, and you have to go to the government offices. And there's a lot of things that you have to do if you want to acclimate, if you want to adjust quickly. And if you're coming with kids, of course, you want them to also fit in quickly. And so that's really the essence of what we provide at Aliyah, at Olim Advisors, is that we'll help you make the important decisions before you get to Israel. And then when you get to Israel, we'll actually go along with you to the bank and the government offices. We'll help you choose doctors and HMOs. We'll advocate for your kids. And really anything that comes up from big to small, you have somebody to go to that can answer your questions, that can help you figure out what to do and overcome the challenges. And really, at the end of the day, we save people a lot of stress, a lot of time, and in essence are, that peace of mind that people get when they know that they have somebody to go to. So what I want to talk about for a few minutes are the steps that you can take to plan out your Aliyah before you get to Israel and then once you get to Israel. So one of the first questions I get is, can I make Aliyah? I talk to a lot of people who have been thinking about it for years and think, well, maybe now's the right time, during Corona, before Corona, after Corona. And what I tell them is that absolutely you can. There are people that are making Aliyah in their 90s, and they're lone soldiers who are coming, and their families that are coming with lots of kids. And so, yes, you can. It might be challenging, and for some people it might be more challenging, and there's never really the perfect time to come. But if you plan it, like anything, like Michael and Ariel talking about selling a home, if you plan it right, then you can definitely do that, and the process becomes a lot smoother. So one of the first thing that you should do is submit your application, whether it's Nefesh B'Nefesh if you're in North America or the UK, or the Jewish agency if you're around the world. Let them know that you plan on making Aliyah, and they will send you a list of documents that you have to submit to be approved. And my recommendation is to tackle that as quickly as possible, because especially now with a lot of the consulates being closed and the embassies and a lot of the offices that you need to get these documents from, it's going to take longer. And there's definitely a bottleneck and a lot of people who have already submitted the applications. So try and get those documents to Nefesh B'Nefesh, to the Jewish agency as quickly as possible so they can start processing it. While you're doing that, start thinking about the big decisions that I was talking about beforehand and make a list of preferences. So for example, if you are thinking about a community, then you want to think about what's important to you in a community. Are you looking for an Anglo community, a religious community? Do you want to be up north or down south? If you're thinking about schools, what kind of schools do you want for your kids? Do you want it to be more secular, more religious, more, schools that have support for Anglos, maybe more an Israeli school? So these are a lot of the variables that go into your decisions. And then of course, when you look to buy a home, that's where you would work with somebody like Kim, who can help you figure out, do you want a house or an apartment? Do you want to buy something on plans or something that's already built? There's a number of factors that go into these decisions. And my advice to you is to prioritize them and say, okay, well, this is the most important decision factor. This is the second most important factor. And then you'll see as you start doing the research that you probably won't find the perfect community or the perfect school or the perfect home, but if it has the top 4 out of 5 or the top 7 out of 10, then you know that you've done the research and you're making the right decisions. So that list of priorities is really important, and I recommend that you do it as soon as possible, because then you just have more time to consider other options as well. Another thing that you should do, if it's possible, is come on a pilot trip. So right now it's not possible, but please God, in the near future, when the borders open up, there's nothing better than coming to Israel and actually seeing with your own eyes the communities and seeing the homes and meeting the school teachers and administrators. So if you're not planning on making Aliyah for another year or 2 years, then please God, you will have the opportunity to make a pilot trip. And that's something that we can help you plan. In a matter of a week to 10 days, you can get everything that you need to do done. And I think it will really help you make these decisions. Another thing that you want to do is decide what you're doing with your house and with your home. So that's where Michael and Ariel will come in. If you want to sell your home, or do you want to rent your home? These are decisions that you need to make early on. And then, when you think about it, what are you going to be doing with your car? Are you going to be selling your car? Are you bringing your car? This decision is also going to have an impact on what you do when you get to Israel. Are you going to be buying a car or just renting a car until you get your car from the States? So deciding what you're going to do with your home and deciding what you're going to do with your car beforehand are really important. What goes along with that, of course, is deciding what you're going to ship. What I recommend that you do is create 3 categories. One category are things that you're definitely going to bring with you. right? Your clothes, your books, your beds. I recommend things that you really need and that are sentimental and that are valuable, and things that you definitely want to bring. Then there's the other category. These are things that you definitely don't need, right? So it's a perfect opportunity to do spring cleaning and give away all the things you don't need and the furniture that's breaking down and things that you've just kept. This is a great time to really, get rid of that stuff. And then you have that middle pile, you have the maybes. And what I'd recommend that you do is contact 2 shipping companies. And I can recommend a few if you want to, after the webinar, reach out to me and I'll recommend a few companies that will give you a quote. They'll give you a free estimate of what it costs to ship the things. And then you can make decisions based on dollars and cents. Is it really worth spending an extra $300 to ship this desk? Or is it worth an extra few $100s to ship these things? And that can really help you decide what you're going to ship and what you're going to give away. Okay, so those are the main decisions pre-Aliyah. Now you get to Israel, and that's where the fun begins. What I'd really recommend that you do first is take a few days and just settle into your new home. Take a deep breath and just walk around. It's such a beautiful country, and no matter where you end up, there's so many amazing things just in your neighborhood. So just go around and meet people. I think you'll find that Israelis are so warm and they're so willing to help. And if you go to your neighbors and say, hey, I just came here, I just made Aliyah, I just wanted to say hi, it will be a great way for you to make friends, for your kids to make friends. And also, these are people that you should go to when you want to know where the nearest supermarket is, or which doctors you want to sign up for, or where should you buy a car, or where should you fix your car. Talking to your neighbors and people in the neighborhood is just a great way to kind of, settle in those first few days, the first few weeks, and really start fitting in. Another thing that you want to do is plan some fun trips. So especially if you're coming in the summer and you're coming with kids, it's a perfect opportunity to go up north and go south and go east and west. And there's so many fun things that you can do before they kind of get into the routine. So, I'd recommend that you do that. Then one of the things that you need to do, which is really important at the beginning, is deal with the bureaucracy. So like I mentioned, you want to open up your bank account, you want to go to the government offices, you want to make sure that you're in the system so that you can get the benefits, because everything revolves around that. When you go to get a doctor, they'll ask you for your Taudat Zehut number. When you go to your school or your kid's school, they'll want to make sure that you have the benefits as a Oleh Chadash. So you want to make sure that you're taking care of this as soon as possible. And here too, if you need help, reach out to us. This is something that we really specialize in. Another thing that you want to do is choose your Kupat Cholim or your HMO. And so there's 4 kupot here that you can choose from. They all pretty much offer the same services, but you want to make sure that you pick one that is that has doctors who speak your language in your neighborhood. And I'll talk about medical benefits in a little bit, but that's something that's really important. A couple other things that you want to keep in mind. You want to sign up for Ulpan. It's something that I strongly recommend. Unless you're coming and you're speaking Hebrew fluently, there's a few different Ulpan programs. There's the government one, and then there's private ones. And there's really, there's benefits to both. So if you have any questions about Ulpan, just reach out to me, and I'll be happy to, talk to you about that. And last but not least, come with a positive attitude. And yes, there will be days that are going to be tougher than others, and your children might have difficult days. But if you think to yourself that, you know what, today was a little tough, but tomorrow will be a little easier, and next week will be a little easier, and next month and 2 months, things will start falling into place, that positive attitude will get you through those tougher days. And I think for you, and if you have kids, for them as well, it's so important just to keep that in mind. Go to people, like I mentioned, and ask for help. Don't be shy, but just have that positive attitude, and that will get you through those days. Now I just want to talk about budgeting and reducing the cost for a moment, because that's something that a lot of people ask me is, how do I, what's the cost of living in Israel? And so there's a range, right? And of course, it depends on your situation. One thing to keep in mind is that the government will give you some money from the beginning. And so that's something that will help you. In our case, we got about 70,000 shekel. We came with 4 kids. And so we use that money to buy a car. Other people can use it to buy, to subsidize your monthly expenses. It's just something that's important to keep in mind. when you think about the cost of living in Israel, the range that Nefesh B'Nefesh gives is somewhere in the neighborhood, and this is for a family of 6. So it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 14,000 shekel a month to about 35,000, or about $4,200 to about $10,500, right? So it's a big range. So what goes into that? I'll just go through some of the big expenses. The first one is your rent or your mortgage, and that's in the range of somewhere between 6 to 10,000 shekel. Now, of course, it can be a lot higher. If you're moving into an expensive area, then you're going to pay more, but that just gives you a sense of what the average rent or mortgage is. Food costs range about $3,000 to $4,000. And again, it depends on what you spend. If you're spending a lot more on if you're doing barbecues every day, then you're going to spend a lot more money on meat. And if you're buying American products, it'll be more, but that will give you a range of about 3,000 to 4,000 shekel a month. Children education is about 1,500 shekel to about 6,000 shekel. And for those of you who are paying private yeshiva tuition in the States or around the world, that's a big difference. You're saving a lot of money here, and that's something that's definitely, will be helpful for you to keep in mind, because on the flip side, salaries are also lower here, right? So your salaries are lower, but your expenses in many ways are lower. Gas and car maintenance, again, depending on where you're commuting to and where you're working, will probably range in about another 1,000 to 2,000. And then lastly, utilities, your gas, electric, water will probably be about 1,000 to 2,000. So all in all, again, somewhere in the neighborhood between 14,000 shekel a month to 35 shekel is a range that you can work with. Now, I just want to share with you a few tips and a few ideas of ways that you can lower your expenses. So one thing is, like we talked about, think about what you're shipping. If you don't need to ship it, then maybe you only need a 20-foot container, not a 40-foot container. So that's something that can save you a few $1,000s. I would recommend that you consider buying a used car. So if you are not shipping your car, like I said, that's what we did, and we saved probably about 40,000 shekel. But buying a used car, you can still buy a lot of cars that are in good condition, that have maybe a few tens of thousands of kilometers, but you can save a lot of money. Another thing that I would recommend doing, and I know this is something that Kim feels strongly about as well, is using a mortgage broker. The mortgage industry here in Israel is very different than the States and around the world, and you can actually negotiate your mortgages and go back and forth between the banks, and you can save tens of thousands of shekel by using a mortgage broker who can guide you. So that's a very effective way of saving money. There's a couple other things that might be specific, relevant to some of you. One is the special education tax credit. So if you have kids who have special needs and go into special education, there's a tax credit that you're eligible for. And this is something that a lot of people don't know about. So make sure that you're getting that, because that can add up a lot over time. And last but not least, if you have a baby within your first year, there's also a subsidy from the government that you're entitled to. And so, I always believe that if you can get free money from the government, take it, you might as well. So there's just a number of ways that you can organize your budget and reduce your expenses that I think is something that a lot of people are concerned about as they're planning Aliyah. Can they afford to live in Israel? And so hopefully this has helped you a little bit. And last but not least, I just want to talk about healthcare, just briefly, kind of an overview. So like I mentioned, there's the 4 different kupot cholim. One thing that's important for you to realize is that everybody by law is eligible for health coverage. So from the first day that you get here, if you're an Oleh Hadash, you have coverage. What you can then decide is the level of coverage that you want. So there's different levels and different costs to each one, but I would recommend that you look at the supplemental insurance, the higher levels, because there are benefits to it. For example, if you or your kids want to get braces, then you can save a lot of money on that. If you want to go outside of the network, then it's a way to go to different doctors without having to wait for months. There's different services like speech therapy, OT, and things like that you're eligible for, and you can have access to more doctors if you get the supplemental insurance. So it is something that you're covered. A lot of the medicine is covered as well, and you can find out there's actually lists of medicine that are covered under each kupa, each HMO. And before you come to Israel, if you do need special care or if you do need special medicine, you want to make sure that you're covered, that you choose the right one so that you have the coverage. And like I said, you want to make sure that you choose the right HMO that has doctors that speak your language in the area that you're moving to. So whether it's a neighborhood in Modi'in or Ra'anana or Yerushalayim, you can just reach out to people who live in that area, and they'll tell you, which HMO is probably better suited for that neighborhood. So I hope this information has been helpful. If you have any additional information or questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be happy to answer them. So with that, Kim, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Rafi. Okay. I've been in real estate now for more than 10 years in Israel. And during COVID time, I have never, ever seen the industry like it is now. It is unbelievable. The prices are stable, they're only going up, and the demand is really unbelievable. Like Michael mentioned earlier, we have so many people looking to buy in Israel, and we really don't have the inventory. So there's a lot of buildings going up, but a lot of these will take between 2 to 3 years. So I say to people that if you are serious about buying, the time is now. And we'll come to, in the points when I go through them, how you can actually buy from abroad. But what I want to cover is, what is the purpose of your purchase? Now, not everybody is, this webinar is about making Aliyah, but not everybody is going to be at a point right now where they can actually say they're going to get on a plane in the next year and make Aliyah right now. So the question is when you're purchasing the property, is it to make Aliyah? Is it an investment? Is it to get your foot in the door for, God willing, the future when you do decide to make Aliyah, or for future generations that you really do want to have a property in Israel? So the next is your budget. How much can I spend on this property in Israel? Do I need financing? Just a point, in Israel, we only work in shekels. It used to be many years ago that all the property prices were in US dollars, but now everything is in shekels. So we only negotiate here in shekels. In terms of mortgages, a foreigner can traditionally borrow up to 50% of the purchase price, whereas if you're making Aliyah, you can borrow anything from between 70% and sometimes even more, depending on what rates we can get you with the mortgage broker. Sometimes if you need additional loans, we can also organize that. We have fantastic mortgage brokers that we work with, that we have been working with for many years and have been able to secure mortgages for most of our clientele. Obviously, everybody is in a different situation. So the other thing that I want to talk about is, basically in America, you have multiple listing servers like Zillow. In Israel, we don't really have that. And we have something called Madlan, we have Yad Shtaim, but they're all in Hebrew. So navigating the system here is very difficult. That's why it's very important to have somebody that you can turn to, a good real estate agent that you trust, that knows how to navigate the system. I'm what you call a buyer's agent. So what I do is I work with each of my clients to establish what they are looking for. What is the criteria? Again, going back to what is their purpose, the short-term goal, the long-term goal. What are they buying for? And we go through all the different, if it's in Jerusalem, whether it's in Tel Aviv, whether it's in Netanya, I run a YouTube, every week we do a Zoom call called Find Me a Community in Israel. And for those of you who don't know about it, you can Google it. It's all the Zooms we've done over the last year on different communities in Israel, because as Rafi said, there are no pilot trips right now. So what I decided to do about 11 months ago is showcase different communities around Eretz Israel. And these are available, they're recorded, where we speak to locals. And we actually have some people who are taking the plunge, who are making Aliyah to these communities without even going there. But usually people do gravitate towards areas where they have already previously visited, or they have family and they have friends there, so they feel more comfortable. And nothing is set in stone. I always say to people, like Rafi said, you can always make Aliyah to a particular location, and that location may not actually be the right location for you, but in the beginning, just to have a place where you know people to settle in, to possibly rent before buying, would make the most sense to me. Like, I would totally go to a place where I had friends or family already living there. I don't know why people wouldn't go there, but that's really where I would go. Also, again, finding out about the education system, because your children, obviously, you need to find the best schools available for your kids. And that, I know Rafi and Laura, who run Olim Advisors, have expertise, help in this area, and can really help you find the right schooling for your children. And it's not so, in Israel, it's a little bit complicated. So you definitely need to find out all the different options. And I would say that is also, when you're looking for location, is that the area where you're going to go, education is very, very important. And I think that's probably quite stressful for most people coming here, especially with teenagers. I think younger children are very adaptable. When it comes to teenagers, that really is a little bit more complicated. Okay, so when you purchase in Israel, there are on top of that what we call your closing costs, like you do in America. And those are anything between, depending on if you are buying as a foreigner or you're buying as a local Israeli. So it works out to be approximately anything from 5 to 10%. And what are the closing costs on top of your purchase? They are your purchase tax, which is acquisition tax. And that will depend upon, again, how are you buying it? What status are you when you purchase the property? And we have great real estate lawyers that can go through that with you. It's anything from 0% up to 10%. And as a new immigrant, you also get benefits up to 7 years of being in the country before you make Aliyah to purchase the property, before you purchase the property. Then we have broker's fees. Now in America, it's a little bit different. In Israel, the buyer and the seller pay agent's fees. It's 2% plus VAT, which is 17%. It's very seldom that a broker will represent a buyer and a seller. Usually we collaborate and work together. We have a network of agents that we work with across Israel, and we all usually pull from the same pot. And then you have your lawyer's fees, and your lawyer is 1% plus VAT. So whatever your purchase price is, if you take in, by the time you do money transferring, which we have a great person as well, we work with somebody called Dan Eisenberg from Israel Transfer. If you're looking to transfer large amounts of money, you also need to put that into your budget. Your mortgage broker, you're looking at an average of about 10% on top of your purchase price. Okay. So how do you buy a property when you're not here? So I have sold quite a few properties in the last year over Zoom, over WhatsApp, over FaceTime. It's not for everybody. It's not buying a pair of shoes. So you really have to have, be able to trust the agent that you're working with, as well as I always ask somebody if they know somebody else in Israel to come with them to look at the property that they're going to be looking at. What I do is I go through the criteria with my clients. What is it that you're looking for? Do you want to live in a house? Are you prepared to downsize and live in an apartment? Do you need a sukkah balcony? Do you have to have a garden? Do you need parking? There's a lot that goes into it. So we basically will speak, we'll determine what your needs are, what the budget is, and then I will start sending listings to my clients, and then we'll make a tour. Now, usually if you were in Israel, we'd go out and do a tour, a couple of days, and we'll see all different properties. But now, because of COVID, so I'll go out with a friend, we'll do WhatsApps, we'll do Zooms, and we'll show the properties to the people, to my clients, and then they'll decide if there's something that they want to buy. Again, not everybody has a stomach for it, but we have successfully sold several properties this year over Zoom. What happens is your lawyer, when you decide on a real estate lawyer, they will send power of attorney. You'll have to go and take your documents to the consulate, have them notarized, and apostille we have an apostille service, but it all can be done. It can take anything from a couple of weeks to a couple of months. Traditionally, payments, and I don't know if it's different in America, payments will usually be 20% on the beginning of the contract. When you are purchasing in Israel, when you sign the contract, that is when the deal is actually closed. But you only really, it could take a couple of weeks or months to actually get the keys. So You just need to bear that in mind, that when you sign the contract, that is when the deal is closed. And then there's a payment schedule, and you can work that out. It's traditionally 20% in the beginning and usually 10% at the end. In the middle, the majority of the money is given over. I also can't stress enough to have a good team. We have built an amazing network with Ariel and with Michael in America. You need people on the ground who can really help you. Selling your home in America, buying your home in Israel, and having people like Olim advisors to help you every step of the way making Aliyah. So I know that when I made Aliyah, I wish that Olim advisors had been around, because there were so many things that I wish I'd known, and it was very, very frustrating. Many times going to different offices and not getting what I needed because I didn't understand the language. Rafi brought up a very, very important thing, which I really regret not spending enough time on, and that is an Ulpan. Now, when you get to Israel, it is imperative that you do an Ulpan. For those of you who are waiting to make Aliyah now and you're not sure when you're going to come, I really advise you to take advantage and go on and do some online learning program on Ulpan programs. There are amazing opportunities out there that you can do. Get your kids watching YouTube videos, get them familiar with the language, because even though you may go to a soft landing community, you really are in Israel and you really do need to speak the language. So I can't stress that enough. Okay, what else? Why buy now? So with the political climate going on in America right now, many people are feeling anxious and they feel they need to buy something, at least have something, even if they're not going to make Aliyah. The economy here is strong. The market is strong. Properties never go down in value in Israel. It doesn't matter where you buy. If you're looking to purchase and to rent out, with the amount of people making Aliyah, there is not a problem for renting out your property until you decide that you want to come and live in it, or you decide that you're just going to hold on to it, keep renting out, short-term, long-term. You will never, ever lose on a purchase in Israel. It is only getting stronger, the market. We have building opportunities all over Israel. Ashkelon, if you want to live by the beach, I think is a great investment opportunity, as well as Nairia. The most soft landing communities where people are looking to buy right now are traditionally have always been and will always remain strong are Modin, Renana, Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and Ramat Beit Shemesh. So there are, if you're prepared to wait, there's some fantastic opportunities. You're looking at about between 2 to 3 years. And this is if you don't necessarily have the budget to put down everything up front right now. There's some amazing opportunities where you can put only 20% down and 80% in a couple of years, 2 to 3 years, when the building is actually finished. So that's basically it. Please reach out to me. I'm happy to have a consultation with you over the phone to determine what your real estate needs are. And I'd like to leave you with one word that you should start learning now, and that's buy it. And buy it is home. And we look forward to welcoming you all to Israel, which is your home, very soon. So thank you so much for your time. And again, please feel free to reach out at any time.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Kim. I'm going to put your contact information on here, and I'd like to get to a few of the questions here. So, Kim, a few people were asking about rentals. Can you talk a little bit about the rental market, how easy or hard it is to rent, and what's your advice for a lot of people who are making Aliyah who aren't necessarily going to buy right away? What does that look like? What's that process look like?
Okay, first of all, whatever's on the market now is not necessarily going to be relevant when people come. So it really is dependent on when they know what their dates are. When you know when your dates are, then we can really start actively looking for you for a rental, and they can reach out to me. I would say if somebody's coming and making Aliyah in the summer, July, let's say August, we would start looking for a rental property in April. But if you're only making Aliyah in a year's time, it's not worth really looking at now. And we can give you an average of what a rental would look like. And it really depends on the location and where you're going to be. Because a property in Jerusalem, let's say a house or a large apartment in Yerushalayim, depending on where it is, in some of the prime locations like Baka, Old Katamon, Talbia, anything very close walk to the old city would cost anything from, I would say, minimum 8,000 shekels up to 20,000 shekels a month. If you're going to go to a place like Netanya, you can get a beautiful apartment close to the beach, walk to the beach, probably for about 6,500 shekels for a 4-bedroom apartment. If you're going to go somewhere like Ashkelon, which is a little bit further up, you're going to pay about, for the same kind of apartment, I would say about 5,000 shekels a month. But again, it's all going to depend on the timing of when you're going to be making Aliyah.
Okay, great. For Michael and Ariel, there's a question here about coming on a Nefesh B'Nefesh trip, and how long before the trip should they sell their home? So what would you recommend in terms of timing? If somebody's coming in the summer, for example, in say July, when would you recommend that they start planning their, the sale of their home?
So I think that one of the first places you start is you contact an agent, who can help you make sure that your home is ready for sale, because there are things you want to do to maximize the return, making sure that it's not just clean to live in, but that it really truly shows pride of ownership, taking care of little things that we don't think about, enhancing our landscaping. So you want to make sure that you get somebody who can give you advice early on, so that there isn't a shock to your system of having to make all of those improvements right away. If you were planning on making a move where you were going to go in the summer, here we are, we're already in March. So I would be preparing early, making sure that we're set up to do all of the things that it takes to maximize the return on your home. Even putting a home on the market is not a one-day process. It takes some time. I always like to work with my clients for 2 to 3 to 4 weeks to make sure that we're fully prepared when the home goes on the market. And then again, our market times in South Florida, in many areas of the country, can be as little as 1 day, generally 2 to 3 weeks. And then you've got a 30 to 40 day closing after the time that the home is under contract. So you're really talking about that being about a 2-month period of time. And I like to expand that a little to make sure we're fully prepared.
Got it. Great. There's a question here about seniors making Aliyah. And so I think there's a few things to keep in mind. One is that the process is the same. So in terms of documentation and paperwork, that's the same. You don't have to necessarily worry about young kids in schools, so that's less of an issue. But then healthcare might be more important, and you might have special medical needs that you need. And so focusing on your healthcare needs and understanding what is available and finding the doctors beforehand is important. And then from choosing a community and a home, there's a number of choices. There are certain communities that are geared more towards retirees. Kim mentioned Nahari up north, which is an up-and-coming place that a lot of retirees are moving to. Also, there's more communities that are more projects that are 55 and older. Kim, and maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit, because I know the model is a little different from what people are accustomed to outside of Israel.
There are a few retirement and senior living facilities, and they're more all over, popping up all over the place. There's a new development happening in Ramat Beit Shemesh that we can put people in touch with. And there are certain buildings that are 55 and plus. So again, it's going to really depend on when somebody wants to be. A lot of my senior population of clients tend to gravitate towards Netanya. So great weather, lots of social activities happening, well, not now during COVID, but pre-COVID. But I'm happy to talk to people on an individual basis to figure out where would be the best place for them to go.
Okay. And somebody asked you about having their kids or grandkids over. And there's a lot of apartments that have a half a room. So if, for example, you're looking to rent an apartment and it says 3.5 rooms, then in essence, it's they count the living room as 1 room and then 2.5 bedrooms. And the half a room, in many cases, is more than enough to have guests over. It's not a full-size room, but if you're just going to have your kids or grandkids that are going to stay by you every now and then, it might be a more affordable way to go if a budget is an issue. Instead of going, for example, for a 4-bedroom, for a 4-room, a 3.5 room might be more within your budget, and it might be suitable for your needs. So when you talk to Kim or you're looking at this, look at that as well. Something that is pretty common here in Israel. Kim, somebody asked about VAT on a purchase price. If, for example, it's 3 million shekel, do you pay 17% on top of that, or how does that work?
No, there's no VAT on a purchase. The VAT is only on services. So you pay your VAT to the lawyer and the mortgage broker and to your broker.
Okay, I got it. Somebody's asking here about medical insurance for seniors, and so there are private insurance, those in some cases might be more worthwhile. It really depends on your situation, and what I would recommend that you do is speak to an insurance broker who can talk to you about what benefits you get from the standard packages, and then you might want to also go private, and it doesn't necessarily add to a lot more money. I know, for example, private insurance for a family can just be a few hundred shekel per month. So if you have medical issues and if you're somebody who's older, then I would recommend that you look into private insurance as well. Somebody's asking here about the monthly sal klita, the payments, and it's a formula. So if you go to Nefesh B'Nefesh, they have on their website a formula, and it's based on your marital status. It's based on how many kids you have, and so you can just go ahead and put your information in there, and that will tell you what you can expect. In essence, it's broken down into a payment that you'll get at the airport, and then the remaining payments you'll get over 6 months that are deposited directly into your bank account. How much you get, like I said, depends on a number of factors. What about, somebody's asking here about the dollar and exchange rate, and what are your thoughts on that, Kim? I know that for a lot of people, the weaker dollar is something that is, worked against them, but what are your thoughts about waiting for maybe to bounce back up versus, looking for opportunities now?
I can tell you that we had a bit of for a couple of maybe 2 weeks when the dollar was down to 2 or something, that it was a little bit quiet, but now it's jumped back up again. So people are not waiting for the dollar to climb back up to purchase properties. They understand that the demand is very high, and we haven't seen a decline in the market at all.
Okay. There's a question here about different status. So you have the Ole Chadash, which is the new immigrant, and then you have a Toshav Chozer, which this person is asking about, which is somebody that lived in Israel and now is returning. And so the process is different. And this is something that you can reach out to us and we can talk to you about. But it is a different process. There are different benefits that you get as being Ole Chadash versus Toshav Chozer. So it is important that you look into that because it will impact your Aliyah process. There's a question here about documents for opening up a bank account, and so we can go into that into detail offline again. The specific documents that you get when you land in Israel that you have to bring, and so just reach out to me and I can talk to you about the documents that you need to open up a bank account. Kim, there's a question here about rentals. Does the lessee pay, the person who's leasing it, or is it from the person who's renting it out? Who pays the commission?
The person who's renting the apartment pays 1 month plus VAT. So if the apartment's 8,000 shekels a month, the renter will pay 8,000 shekels a month plus the VAT. It's 1 month, and every situation is different, but when you are renting, they usually require 1 month rent upfront and then a security deposit. So it's usually 3 months that you've got to have upfront to pay for a rental.
Okay. Ariel and for Michael, there's a question here. What is the expertise that Aliyah Homes brings to the table over regular real estate broker in the U.S.?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Michael, you can take it.
Thanks, Mark. So, and I'll, if I miss something, Ariel, please make sure that So we first of all understand the very specific needs to align the timing and to deliver. We said to make it a seamless solution. I personally have over 30 years of experience as a real estate broker. I'm a trainer. I'm a licensed instructor. So I know a lot of the moving parts that you may not always find with every agent. Not that every agent is certainly not good, but we have a very, very specific expertise in the process and a very long and successful track record of working with clients around the country. And we've built a very strong network of like-minded agents to make sure that we are delivering that unique experience to each one of our clients, that we recognize that it's not just about the single moment, it's about the entire process from beginning to end, and making sure that we're making that as seamless as possible. Selling a home is an emotional process. Buying a home is an emotional process. Making Aliyah adds to the emotion of the connection, the highs and the lows. And, so we truly understand what that looks like to make sure that we are making this process as painless as possible, and to provide you with absolute expertise and tell you the truth when you need to hear the truth. There's a difference between kind and nice. Being nice is telling you what you want to hear. Being kind is telling you what you need to hear in a nice way. So we want to make sure that, we're going to deliver what you need to know and to help you make the best decisions in the process. And, it's always about the client, always.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said, Michael. I mean, I would also add that, we also, built the relationships and the connections in Israel that most agents in America don't have. That is another element in the Aliyah homes that sets us apart from other agents in the United States. The past several months, we worked very, very hard to make that happen. In fact, we partner with Olim Advisors, with Kim Bosch, and with various other connections in Israel that we have at our disposal. And I'm gonna restate what Michael said. We are here for you. We are here for the process of the individual making Aliyah, not for the sale of your home. There's a difference. We're here for your Aliyah, not for the sale of your home. An agent who may not necessarily understand the process of the Aliyah may, I think it would be wise to vet them more effectively.
Okay, great. There's a question here about the money down with renting. I know, Kim, it's a challenge that a lot of people we help with, because a lot of landlords will take money up front. And how does that process work if you need a guarantor and you need, to give them post-dated checks? Can you go over that process if somebody's renting, how that works?
It is it can be complicated because a lot of them will require 12 months rent. They don't bank them obviously, but they hold on to them. And sometimes you will need to, if somebody doesn't have a guarantor, they may have to pay more upfront. Especially, if a lot of the time people call me and say, what do? I don't have a guarantor. Can you sign for me? I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I really can't. But it's usually, I think that a landlord is quite, they'll be open to at least taking maybe another security or double the security deposit to hold if somebody doesn't necessarily have a guarantor. Usually it means putting a little bit more money up front.
Okay. A couple questions here about the lift company, the shipping companies. And so one thing is just to go online and do the research, because there are some companies that just don't have the best of reputations. So you want to deal with companies that have good reviews that you feel comfortable with. When you call them, you can see, you usually can get a sense. So you want to make sure that you're dealing with that. If you have specific questions about advice, then reach out to me and I can definitely talk to you about your situation. But you do have to be careful that you go with a reputable company, because I've heard a lot of horror stories when it comes to it. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, there's a question here about do you know, Kim, with the Olim, there's an Olim discount. Is that on mortgages? If you take a mortgage, I think there's an Olim discount that may or may not be beneficial. Do you know?
I don't know, but we can always find out.
Okay.
We can always find out. I know that when it comes to the purchase tax, there's certain rights that an Olim gets. But in terms of mortgages, we can speak to our mortgage broker and find out.
Okay, Great. Ariel, there's a couple questions here about your location in New York. One question is asking if you have agents in New York City, and then somebody's asking where you're located in New York.
Yeah. I'm the agent in New York. Michael's out in South Florida. I am in New York. I specifically focus. I have a team. I specifically focus in Queens to the 5 towns. That's my bread and butter. I do have an agent out in Brooklyn, and one in Staten Island, and another in the Bronx. I am also in a franchise, in a KW franchise with 150 agents. That covers the entire 5 boroughs. So in terms of if there's an area I don't serve, or if my team doesn't serve, we can definitely make that possible. And they will be underneath the Aliyah Homes umbrella, so they won't just be there for the sale of every home. I think someone also asked about what does it mean that I'm there for this Aliyah, not for the sale of every home. That just means that I'm there for the entire process. There's more of like there's like a wider, broad process that one needs to consider, not just the micro micro detail of the process in the yellow, which is a sell every home, because that's just one element, but there are many more elements that one needs to take into consideration. And in terms of either renting or purchasing a home, selling your home is a very crucial asset, because you need to have a budget for what you're going to be utilizing to be purchasing a home in Israel, right, Kim? Is that the
Correct.
Yeah. So I hope I answered your question.
Thank you.
Can I add something, Rafi? Sorry, I didn't bring it up. You had mentioned it. A lot of people say to me, well, we want to bring all our furniture. And I'm like, no, because a lot of the times the homes that you're going to be either renting or purchasing are not going to be the same size. And a lot of the times your dining room table is not going to fit into your new living room, your new dining room area. So I say, like you said, bring your sentimental pieces, things you really cannot live without. The other alternative is just to keep your container in storage until you find a home that's going to be suitable for your needs. But if you're not emotionally attached to your stuff, I would say that most of the stuff you can buy in Israel, there's IKEA here as well. I would say bring the sentimental pieces with you. It's just a little, and again, the rooms, like you mentioned, when you're selling in Israel, they say 3 rooms, which is 2 bedrooms, just to clarify that.
Right. There's a question here about volunteering, and I think that's one of the amazing things about Israel is they're asking about volunteering opportunities. There's so many opportunities in Israel to volunteer across the entire spectrum, and I think it's an amazing way to give back to the country, to meet people, and so it really depends on your areas and what you're interested in doing, but there's no shortage. And I think especially for people who are retired, who are looking to do something with their time, we've helped a number of people get involved in different organizations, and there's always organizations looking for volunteers. So rest assured, you're not going to have problems finding something. You just want to find the thing that speaks to you, that you're passionate about, and that's where you should reach out to people. And one thing I just want to add in terms of resources, there's a lot of great Facebook groups where you can go and you can ask questions. We actually had started one a few months ago that's called the Anglo Support Network in Israel Facebook group that has really grown very quickly, and I'll send the link to everybody. But that's a great Facebook group if you have just general questions about making Aliyah or real estate. And there's a lot of other Facebook groups where you can just ask questions. And so take advantage of all these resources that are available to you. I think again it goes back to planning beforehand. It's something that you can definitely do. Okay, we'll take maybe a couple more questions and then we'll end it. But there's a question here, Kim, about an American being a guarantor. Does it have to be somebody in Israel, or can it be an American that can guarantee it, or outside of Israel?
No, usually it has to be somebody in Israel.
Okay.
But again, it really depends on the landlord.
Right. Okay. And then somebody was asking here about the responsibilities of the renter when it comes to maintenance. What are typically renters responsible for if something breaks? What is the landlord responsible? What are the renters responsible for?
So it's going to depend on the contract, and that I would strongly advise people sometimes do not think they need a real estate lawyer to look at the contract, but it's a must. You absolutely have to have somebody look at your contract. Usually if it's general repair, like if there's something like a leak, the landlord will take care of it. If the apartment is furnished, for example, and there's already a fridge there, like sometimes it comes partially furnished, you'll usually get a fridge or usually get an oven. But generally it's going to depend on what's inside the apartment. If something breaks that they have supplied you with, depending on if it's something that you've caused, if it's something that you broke, then you'll take responsibility. Or if it's something that's an external thing, if something doesn't work, they'll replace it. I just had somebody now that their fridge ended up not working. The landlord changed it. Usually they would like you, I think it's interesting, you've got to paint the apartment before you leave. You've got to basically leave it the way that you get it. So that's one of the things I have noticed in most of the contracts, that you will have to repaint it before you leave. But there is also insurance, renter's insurance,
Right.
that the landlord will take out as well when he's renting the apartment.
Okay. And then there's a question here about, just to clarify, so Aliyah Homes focuses on the US. Michael and Ariel have their own offices, but they have a network of agents throughout the country. So if you're located in LA or Chicago, reach out to them and they can put you in touch with people there. Where Kim comes in is she helps people who want to find a place in Israel. So the question is, does Aliyah Homes help somebody who wants to rent in Israel? They focus on the US, and then Kim can help you find a home in Israel, whether you want to rent or buy. So make sure that you reach out to Kim if you're looking to find a home in Israel. And then the last thing, I just see a few questions here about the recording. So we will send out an email. It'll probably go out tomorrow with the link to the recording. So it'll go out to everybody. So make sure that you look out for that. And again, I want to encourage you all to reach out to us. We're happy to talk to you, even if you're not planning on selling your home now or making Aliyah now or buying a home in Israel. You just want to understand the process or have some questions. We will all be very happy to talk to you. So thank you again to Kim and to Michael and Ariel. We appreciate your time, and thanks to all of you for joining us. We really want to encourage you to go through this process and to really fulfill your dream of moving to Israel, and we can be a small part of that process, then it's our pleasure. So thanks, everybody. Have a great week. Be well and healthy, and all the best. Take care.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Be well.
Everybody be well.